What is going on, young man? Listen, I am the over 50 guy / the online dad. On today's episode, I want to talk to you guys about fairness. Is there real fairness in the world? And if not, how do you cope with that? That's what we're going to talk about today. Young man, listen, one of my subscribers, A. Jackson, had wanted me to talk about this thing. And what I would tell you guys, especially if you're between 18 and 29, because by 29, you should have figured it out. One thing, if you haven't figured it out, young man, that you need to figure out sooner than later is that life is not fair. Life is absolutely not fair. As an example, how do you square children, innocent children that have never harmed anyone, being diagnosed with a terminal illness? And then the fact that it's this child instead of that child. How do you square that? How do you square the person who has never smoked in their lives, never had a cigarette in their lives, and they end up with terminal cancer? Meanwhile, there's a person that's been smoking since they were 13 years old, never have a lung condition in their lives, right? How do you explain the person that's walking around out here that is an awful person? They hurt people with no remorse, with no thought about it. They've done it their entire lives. They're just rotten people, and they're walking around here like everything is everything. And then you have a person over here, law-abiding citizen, good family man, wouldn't harm a fly, man or woman, wouldn't harm a fly. And a car jumps a curb and takes them out. I can give you multiple examples. How is it fair that not so much now, but definitely in the past, especially for people that look like me, that access was denied and your life could be taken simply from the color of your skin, even though you have these laws and you have all of this stuff to try to protect against this unfairness. I came up in a religious household. I came up in church. So, religion tries to go at it and try to explain this ideal of unfairness. They explain it by the fact that there's some great plan and all of this stuff happens and you don't know why, but the person that created it knows why, and you just have to trust that. Well, I think that's unfair. Like why do I have to spend a lifetime wondering why you picked my brother to commit suicide and not someone else's? Wouldn't it be easier just to tell me now? Wouldn't it be easier just so I don't have to? It's unfair that I have to go through life wondering, what happened? Why didn't he call? Why? Guys, I can give you all kinds of illustrations about unfairness, right? You work a job and you show up every day and you do all of the right stuff. You come in early, you stay late, you do all of that stuff. But then a relative comes in that is unbeknownst to you, a relative of your supervisor, and they get, they could fire you or give that person the promotion. Guys, that type of stuff exists. It just exists. And you're going to have to come to terms with the fact that life is just unfair. And I understand how you kind of get to the fact of thinking about this. I have granddaughters and I watch how they play and something will happen and it's not fair. And then one of them will come and, grandfather, she did, and I have to go in and mediate that thing out. You get into the real world and that thing just doesn't exist. So, A. Jackson, no, life is very unfair. I don't believe that there's fairness in this world. I believe quite the contrary, that life is horribly unfair. Now, how to cope with that? How do you cope with this world, young men, being unfair? I would tell you that you cope with it, young men, by taking personal responsibility for yourself. This is how you cope with an unfair world. Taking personal responsibility for yourself and doing everything you can do to put the odds in your favor of whatever it is that you're trying to do. This is the only way. Do you ever wonder, young men, why you never hear wealthy people complain of fairness and unfairness? You ever notice that? When's the last time you heard a rich person or a wealthy person talk about how unfair something is? You know why they don't complain about that? They don't have to. They have resources and they have options. So when unfair shit hits, right, they can either circumvent it one way or it's just kind of water off their back like a duck, that it doesn't really affect them the way unfairness affects poor people or average people. It's average people that talks about, well, this isn't fair and you should do this and they should do that. And I look at it in the political climate. It ain't wealthy people complaining about taxes, right? It's poor people. So personal responsibility, young men, doing the building yourself thing that I've been talking about from the beginning is how you deal with the unfairness of life. Listen, see, that's another thing, young men, that you have to come to terms with. A lot of stuff ain't just unfair. A lot of stuff is your behavior. A lot of stuff is the lack of you taking personal accountability and responsibility for yourselves. And I see it often. It's the thing where the guy gets pulled over by the police and you're just pulling me over because I'm black. No, it's not because you're black. I'm pulling you over because your windows are tinted beyond the legal amount. I can smell weed with the windows rolled up as you rode by. You're in a horrible neighborhood, right? At 4:00 in the morning. See, that's not unfair, young men. That's not unfair. That is your choices. That is your bad choices putting you in a position that is not going to end up well for you. It's the same thing with your health. It's the same thing with employment. It's the same thing with your finances. If you don't get out here, get the right type of job, if you don't start building yourselves properly at an early age, you will be one of those people when you get to my age talking about, man, this ain't fair. This is messed up out here. The world is this. And while the world certainly isn't fair, right? It wasn't fair for the successful people and wealthy people that have made the right decisions in their lives. And they've had the same setbacks. They've had the same unexpected deaths in their family, the same illnesses, the same tragedies that these other people have had. The difference, though, this is what I want to impress upon you, A. Jackson. This is the point of the whole video. Unfair things are going to happen in life because that is just a part of the world that you live in. But taking personal responsibility and accountability for yourself early and building yourself to a person that has resources and options so that when the unfair things happen, you can deal with those things differently than someone who doesn't. That's the key. That's the key, young men. I'm doing content creation right now. I love talking to you young guys. I do. The reality, though, is I didn't make the best financial decisions early on in my life, and I'm getting ready to retire. And the reality for me is that I may not have enough money to retire. And I can easily say, that's the government and the taxes and they, ain't going to be no money for Social Security and it's just unfair. That ain't it. That ain't it. The fact of the matter is I made horrible decisions. I can remember being 20-something years old, listening to the older men talk about retirement and saying, I ain't got to listen to that type of stuff. That's old people stuff. Well, now I'm that old person that should have been listening and paying attention back then. I made horrible decisions with money throughout my life. So I get to a point now where, I need this job that I have. And if something goes wrong with that, then I would be hurting. So that's not the unfairness of life. That is my choices. So what I'd have to do now is make a choice to come here and do content creation. And like I said, while I enjoy talking to you young men, there's another thing I'm trying to accomplish here. I am trying to put something in place, personal responsibility. I am trying to put something in place so that if something ever happened to my job, I can still take care of myself, right? I can still pay rent somewhere. I can through this content creation. So, young man, A. Jackson, life is so very unfair. And the only way that you can cope with it, truly cope with it, is you take personal responsibility for yourself and you do everything you can. Rather, that is getting the right job early, finding your passion and your purpose early and developing that into something that you can monetize greatly, choosing the right wife, choosing the friends you hang around with, the places you go. This is personal responsibility that you take for yourself that puts more of the odds in your favor of being able to build yourself to someone that, again, when unfair things happen, they don't affect you the same way as they affect people with no options and no resources. The bottom line, young man, is that, a lot of stuff in life, Jackson, you won't be able to control, but there's plenty that you can. These are the things that you do to cope, Jackson and young men, with the unfairness of this world. Listen, hope that helps, guys. That's all I got for tonight. I apologize. I missed the live last night. Had some stuff going on at home. I couldn't get on with you guys. But we are normally live 11 o'clock on Sundays. I got to figure out a way, if that is not going to happen, I can let you guys know. But we will definitely be back this coming up Sunday for that. One-on-one coaching is still available. As usual, I am the Over 50 guy / the online dad. We'll be back with another one soon.